Welcome to Behind the Business on the Boise Beat. I'm your host, Gordie Tamayo. Today, we're joined by McKenzie Ferry from Living Land Ranch, joining us to talk about the growing movement right here in Idaho. Along with her husband, Ethan, McKenzie is on a mission to teach others how to cultivate their own food, develop sustainable communities, and embrace a more self-sufficient way of life. And with the Idaho Homestead Conference just around the corner, we'll dive into what it means to truly live off the land, support local, and build a thriving community of like-minded individuals. So stick around, as this conversation is sure to plant some ideas about the power of self-sufficiency and local resilience. McKenzie, how's it going?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for jumping on board here with me to talk, all things about what you do. And I want to tap into it a little bit because you're going to have to school me a little bit, just like how you school a lot of other people with what you're doing. But talk to me, if you could, about Living Land Ranch and what is it and what are you guys doing there?
Yeah, so we are a small, a micro farm here in Meridian, Idaho, just 5 minutes from the freeway, with the goal of providing people with not only the knowledge to grow their own, if that's something they're interested in, raising their own food. That's like our favorite thing. But for those who aren't interested in that, we also have a farm stand on Saturdays from 10 to 1. We do garden shares and things like that. Just try and provide nutrient-rich food to people in our community.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's you got to be a special somebody, I'd say, to have a green thumb and be able to do that. Never seemed to be my forte. I have a buddy of mine who he was always that. He was the green thumb that I'd have come around work in my garden for me. So that's
That's
awesome.
my husband.
Is it?
Give all credit to Ethan, yeah.
That's cool. So take me back a little bit on what got you guys started in this particular vein. Like, did you guys grow up with parents or family that did this as well, or is it something you guys decided to jump into later in life?
Yeah, my husband's great-grandparents were farmers. My great-grandparents are cattle ranchers. But Ethan and I were born and raised in Meridian, Idaho. Met actually in high school. We're high school sweethearts. And really, we went to school at Idaho State, came back. We're loving the 9-to-5 life. It's comfortable, cushy. And then we had our first kid. And as it does for so many, it rocked our world as far as realizing, where our food came from. She had a couple allergies, but we were finding that if we ate farm fresh food, didn't have an issue, but if we ate store-bought food, we did. And so, it just really opened our eyes and pushed us into this lifestyle. And we're grateful for it now. For a long time, I resisted it, thinking that we could. I don't know. I saw how much work my grandparents put into the farm. Yeah. My great-grandparents put in the farm, and I was like, I don't really want that for my life. I'm enjoying this nice, comfortable 9-to-5 life. And my husband just really thankfully pushed us into, starting small with 4 chickens. And then within 4 years, we have 3 kids, hundreds of chickens, milk cows, the whole thing. So
yeah, that's great. That's pretty bold for you guys to be able to take the leap. I'll say hi to little one in the back. Hi.
Can you go back downstairs with Daddy, please?
Hi, can you buy my blanket?
Okay. Can you lay downstairs? Thank you.
I got 4 myself. So
you have some interruptions, yeah.
Yeah, no, they're good. Well, that's awesome. That's inspiring because it does take, some guts to be able to jump out and do what you guys are doing. And I would have to anticipate that when you guys were doing it, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if there was as much kind of buzz around this kind of lifestyle as there is or seems to be right now growing in this part of the country. Back when you guys were starting, was it something that was readily going around and a lot of people were moving towards, or were you guys pretty early?
We were in kind of the start of the buzz, 2018, 2019 was when we started getting into it at home. Jessica Sowards from Roots and Refuge talks about turning your waiting room into your classroom. And so we owned a house in the heart of town. But, we maxed out chickens. At one point, I had 150 chicks in the garage. We leased out property to be able to pasture them and come out and take care of them on
Mm-hmm.
pasture. We had ducks there and really like honed in on gardening skills and cooking
Wow.
in
Yeah.
season, all that stuff there. And then my parents had bought this property for their business actually, but we saw a lot of opportunity here. And so we started renting this in 2021. And that's when things were really taking off in the
Mm-hmm.
homesteading world. And so, yeah, I would say when we first started, it was, reading Joel Salatin books, and really just like we had to seek out the information, and kind of really explain our why.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thought we were a little crazy.
Yeah.
But then by the time we got to this farm, there were so many people that were just in, they're in
Yeah.
it. So
Wow. That's phenomenal. One of the things that you're speaking to right now, I mean, like you said, you maxed out 100 chickens in your garage at one point in time, and you're leasing out, pasture land to grow these animals, etc., to raise these animals. There's obviously, a strong business component to running Living Land Ranch, and I know it ties into what you're doing with the Idaho Homestead Conference, which we'll get into in just a little bit. But
yeah.
talk to me about some of the unique challenges that you've faced of running, a business like this, with having a mission that's educational centered, but you also have the logistics, right, of running a family business, which can't be easy. And a lot of the people that
Yeah.
might be listening to this, they're entrepreneurs, they're business owners, they're people that are maybe they're playing around with the idea of saying, hey, like, I want to live sustainable. I want to go and grow my own food and raise my own chickens. Like, what are some of the challenges that you guys have faced?
Yeah, this definitely isn't something you get into for the money.
Mm-hmm.
There is opportunity there, but you have to really diversify. It was 2 years ago that we made the leap. My husband's an aircraft mechanic, and he came home. We had built up a nest egg to know that we could run the race and try and make this a thing for a year. And
Mm-hmm.
if it ran out, he'd go back to work, and he's still on farm. We're making it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, so there's some unique challenges as far as when you're selling things in season. A lot of people don't know, like, they want a tomato sandwich,
Mm-hmm.
like a BLT year
Mm-hmm.
round. And so in the beginning of the season, you're like, come get your tomatoes. Like, we're drowning in tomatoes, and you're trying to do anything to sell them. And then you finally find all your customers for the tomatoes, and then you're like, okay, we have no more. It's
Mm-hmm.
done, and
Yeah.
everyone's coming to you like, hey, I want 10 pounds of tomatoes. And you're like, you're too late.
Yeah.
They're done. And it's that way for many parts of our farm, So that's been a challenge of just like staying ahead on the marketing
Yeah.
to get the customers excited before they're ready. And then also when you're growing things, and this is why we've kind of moved to education, is a lot of our farm was weather dependent. We leased 6 acres for hay, and I can't tell you in the spring when I'm going to be cutting that hay, when that hay is going to be available, how good of a quality that hay is going to be. And same for, produce and all that. But I can teach you how we're dealing with the challenges along the way. And that is more sustainable income for us.
Yeah. Gotcha. So does that tie into the Home of Idaho Skills Collective? Is that part of?
Yeah.
Yeah. Elaborate on that for me, if you would.
Yeah, in January, we started the Idaho Skills Collective as kind of like a sub company of Living Land Ranch.
Okay.
And so, we have our farm stand that we moved in the house. Last year, it started as a table on the road with us, like, waving people down to buy a few things. And then it moved into our carport where we're hauling stuff in and out every Saturday. And then now we have a room in our house that we built as a farm stand. And in January, we're like, well, we didn't have the farm stand open year round last year. And so, like, why don't we use this as a classroom? People are always asking us, like, how do you make broth? How do you pressure canning, herbal medicine, that type of stuff?
Yeah.
So we started the Idaho Skills Collective to run classes and teach people these skills, that they could do it themselves. That saying of, like, you can give a man a fish and they can eat today, but you can teach them to fish and they can eat for life.
Yeah.
We really found out, we had a chicken butchering business for a little bit, and we found out that we really enjoyed the people who showed up with their chickens and were like, okay, teach me how I'm in this with you. A lot more than the people who just dropped off 100 chickens at our door and with me and my husband, 3 kids, and came back 8 hours later,
Yeah. Right.
So we really have a heart for teaching, and the Idaho Skills Collective has given us that path forward. We also have a lot of friends with great skills, so we rent out our classroom to them. We've had a
Yeah.
lot of fun classes and community built that way. So
Yeah, that's cool. It really does speak to the entrepreneurial spirit, I would say, where you're learning how to do what the saying is, if you've ever heard it, it's casting your bread upon the waters, many waters, right? And finding different streams, different revenue sources, just you're constantly adapting to what you need
yeah,
to, meet the needs of the market, or, to carve out a new niche. And, education seems to be one of those. You mentioned this community aspect, these people that were coming in at one point in time and dropping off chickens, showing up, time later, in these relationships that get developed and fostered. And so I hear and see community kind of built in everything that you're doing. And obviously within this industry, it's highly community centric. And so talk to me about, your approach to building community with other growers, with other homesteaders, like-minded families. Because sometimes it might seem like maybe it's a little bit difficult to do it in today's high-paced, fast world, and you're kind of pumping the brakes a little bit and getting back to the basics of relationships with people. How do you guys do that? How do you guys build that community?
yeah, it really started with our decision to keep an open door policy on the farm, you know,
Mhm,
and allowing, when somebody comes to pick up their uh whatever it is, like when at first we were selling chickens because that's
mm,
where the profit was. There's not much profit in chickens now, but
mm,
back then there was. And so they'd come to pick up their chickens and they'd be like, oh, wow, you guys put up this greenhouse. What are you doing? And you walk,
mhm.
you don't, it's not close off. You invite them in, you show them what you're doing. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I was trying to grow tomatoes and the leaves were turning in. Why is that? You know?
Mm,
And I don't know, we give a lot of free value one-on-one with
sure.
people because that's how you build up that relationship in that community. And so I really think having an open door policy from the beginning, being willing to answer questions, not being, afraid to say like, oh, actually, I don't know why your plant's
Mm,
doing that, but let me ask some gardening
mhm.
friends and get back to you, and taking them, 10 minutes to do that research and send that information their way. Because in order to build a valuable community, that relationship has to go two ways. And
Mhm.
now we see that with the way that the farm stand is growing. We do consignment in there now.
Oh,
We're
wow.
not gonna we're not trying to build this business ourselves. We want to bring all these other
Mm,
small local businesses with us, and really create like a family environment for people. I
yeah.
want I want kids to have so much fun that in 20 years they're bringing their kids back because it's a
Mm,
core memory to be visiting our farm stand.
yeah. That's awesome. You got several things that are tying in here together. I mean, obviously the educational component is huge for you guys, and how you enjoy teaching others and sharing knowledge, and um, sharing resources with people in the form of knowledge is what you're doing. But this other aspect of not doing it alone and using the community to build something, I see you guys doing that with the upcoming conference that you guys got coming up here in November. And my understanding is it's November 9th, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? November 9th
Yep.
over at the Rustic Daisy, new event center in Idaho. And talk to me a little bit about how this culmination is coming together, because you really are doing that. You're bringing a community together, and you're building a community within this as well, where you got, speakers, you have, some other things that people can come in and take part in. Explain what this whole Idaho Homestead Conference is about.
Yeah, definitely. So we have attended over the years several different homestead conferences, some online, some in person, and it's really great for gaining knowledge. But the thing that has been missing over and over again is the building of community.
Mm,
Because, you go to this conference, you rub shoulders with the celebrities in the homesteading world, or, you get this knowledge, but then it's like you're asking the beekeeper, what do I do in the winter when it's freezing? Like, how do I keep the bees over winter? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm from the South and it doesn't freeze. And you're like, oh, well, that
mm,
doesn't really help me. Or, pasture management. They're speaking on pasture management and they're super, super knowledgeable. But then you're like, how do I rotate cows and chickens and sheep and
mm,
irrigation? You know?
mm,
And they're like,
mhm.
oh, I don't know. I don't irrigate because we're, back east where it rains enough. We don't have to
Yeah.
irrigate. And it just is starting to get like, I need boots on the ground knowledge here where I can go ask people questions when I get back and I'm trying to implement these skills and something's not working. Like, what am I missing? I
Yeah.
can't go to that YouTuber and ask those questions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the Idaho Homestead Conference was born. We're trying to bring boots on the ground, regionally local speakers who are doing it here in our climate, all in one room on November 9th to speak to their expertise and how they're doing it here in Idaho. And then again, to build that community, these are small business owners, people who are willing to share their knowledge year round, somebody that you can go buy stuff from, a month from now and have a conversation with. So,
Yeah. So for somebody that maybe isn't doing it yet, but is considering, making a lifestyle change and, growing their own food or raising their own animals, etc., what would be your, insight to say this is maybe a step in that direction without getting overwhelmed with thinking you got to like have all the things. You got to have the greenhouse and, the 100 acres and, growing your own alfalfa and all this other stuff, right? It's like, what would you say are some practical like steps that somebody could take who's like been considering it or maybe listening to this now saying, hey, yeah, I've been thinking about that for a minute. Like, what would you say are practical next steps?
Yeah, I think, Weston A. Price, they do a great job of building community and helping consumers find local farms to buy from. And then there's also things like the barter markets, Rico, where you can get to know these like farmers and producers and have a great relationship, build a great relationship with them. So that's number one, is find the people around you that you can support and learn from.
Yeah.
I know like we have had people that are like, I can't afford to buy this, this stuff from your farm.
Yeah.
Would you trade? Can I come and do work on your farm? Can I come pull weeds with you? Can I come do XYZ in exchange? And it's like, absolutely, let's share that knowledge. You help me, I help you. And we, the whole barter thing. So I think build those relationships around you is number one. And then two, like Jessica Soward says, in return, you turn your waiting room into classroom. If you're in a apartment, what do you eat a lot that you can grow in a container? Maybe that's herbs. Maybe that's peppers. Maybe that's tomatoes. What can you do that will, get you the skills needed if you do ever get the option to grow bigger.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sorry.
Are you good? What's up, bud?
Say hi.
That's okay. Yeah, that's great. It's making me think of, how local economics and how that comes into play with everything you're talking about with supporting those other businesses that are in your same sphere, that end up, feeding one another in essence, right? With the way that the structure ends up working out together. So that's cool. I think what you're doing is pretty inspiring with really championing true community where people are supporting each other that way. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many great people with good intentions around here. So
yeah, that's cool. What's on the horizon or in the future, if you've kind of looked down 10 years down the road, for you guys and how you're looking to potentially, I don't know if it's scaling what you're doing or just getting smoother operations and streamlining things better. Like, what's on the horizon for you guys?
Yeah, I think, we'd love to grow our animal side a lot more. Right now we have just under 5 acres, but we can't, it's not enough to like provide meat for people on a bigger scale. And so we would love to scale that, whether that looks like leasing more land around here. And, there's a lot of land around us that's not being used. So reviving some land around us or, having the opportunity to have a bigger piece of property to farm. But we'd really like to grow the animal side and provide meat to people. I think we are kind of done selling produce and instead want to go the shares route, and sharing portions of our garden with people who are interested in supporting us and that type of thing. Still providing the nutrients, but without struggling with the demand, like sometimes I'm left with a whole bunch of produce I have to hurry and figure out something to do with the next day. And then other times we sell out and people are upset that they came for produce and it's gone. So I think the shares are out. We kind of stepped into this year and we're really loving that. And then really our education pieces it's really what we love to do,
Yeah.
you know? And so growing the opportunities there to educate and bring community together
Yeah,
is
that's
like
cool.
where our heart's at.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the educational side of it is the one area I think that you can scale almost exponentially and do it cross boundaries as well, right? Outside of the Idaho region with what you guys are learning and developing over time. I mean, you guys can educate physically, yes, in person, but digitally as well, which I'm sure you guys are exploring some ideas and options of what that looks like potentially. But
Yeah,
this is great.
definitely.
Yeah, this has been inspiring and very insightful. I will bring my 100 chickens over to you pretty soon, drop them off. I probably wouldn't know what to do with my 100 chickens other than make a mess. But
Yeah. Well, we can teach you how to butcher it, or we can rent the equipment to you. You know, we'll bring it over and help you do it.
I'll take you up on that. Cool. Well, McKenzie, it's been a pleasure having you on board here with me. Thank you for sharing what you guys are doing over at Living Land Ranch and for sharing with us what's upcoming with November 9th, Idaho Homestead Conference over at the Rusted Daisy. If you're tuned into this and any of this sparked your imagination, make sure you check it out.